It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to your feel-good breakfast show, Expresso on SABC3. How do you feel about that Expresso rewind that we just
It
had?
traumatizes me. Like, every time we have that game, I'm like traums.
Anyway.
I'm glad we haven't had it for a while.
Yeah.
Actually, it must take a break again.
Let's just reflect on something happier, shall
Yes,
we? Yeah,
let's.
we know that ahead of the Global Citizen Concert, the Motsepe Foundation hosted a breakfast with an interactive panel discussion to address Sustainable Development Goal 5 for gender equality. Now, we were invited by Dr. Precious Moloi Motsepe, and our very own Mosa Kaiser attended. So let's see how it all went down and find out what the discussions were all about.
You didn't win the monkey, now you take the teaspoon.
SDG 5 is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 5, and it aims to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls everywhere as a cornerstone of sustaining our future.
Dr. Motsepe, you're the co-chair of Mavericks Collective. You spoke a lot about gender equality and women's rights. What are some of the countries in Africa that are doing the right thing and going in the right direction?
We have an African country that is one of the top 5 countries that has narrowed the gender gap, and that is Rwanda. They have women represented in business, on boards, and has more than 60% representation of women in parliament. The health indices and education are in the right direction. So, Rwanda for me is really a beacon of hope and a benchmark for other African countries.
You do an amazing job for the Motsepe Foundation, the Maverick Collective, Global Citizen. You are a world-renowned philanthropist. How can one walk in your shoes?
Over the last few months or so, we've seen an amazing change in terms of how South Africans and generally Africans on the continent view philanthropy. This Global Citizens Festival that we're bringing to South Africa, working with global citizens, 70% of the tickets are earned by doing certain actions of kindness in the community. And we've had about 4 million actions from feeding homeless people to cleaning up parks. So there's been this amazing, act of goodness from our people.
Advocate, can you tell us more about what are some of the challenges that you think that we might come across while we try and achieve the SDG 5 before 2030?
Firstly, it's about teaching men from young boys, from cradle, about how to be a human being. You don't have to be superior to anyone, and nobody has to be superior to you. What I suggested we should do is to support the men's movement that is already growing in our country and in the rest of the world, having dialogue and re-educating men about their own masculinities and what is toxic masculinity and what is a proper way to be a man.
Advocate, do you have any words for girls and young women who want to be global citizens and want to be part of achieving the SDG 5?
To every young woman, know about the SDGs, particularly goal number 5, but know about all of them. Use these goals to create apps or technologies that will advance women, that will solve women's problems around violence, solve women's economic problems, and also promote inclusion.
Among many key performance indicators for reaching this goal are that women have complete access to reproductive health, to ownership of land, and representation in political life.
Equality of income is very important, because if we do the same work, why should a woman be paid less? So I think that's one thing, practical thing, that as women we can just say, we've had enough of this. We are pushing for legislation, equal pay for equal work.
For me, education. There must be action. And those of us who are in spaces where we can be heard, we must step aside from time to time and help other people to be heard.
There's a $3 trillion gap of resources that we need to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And we're going to go much quicker to achieve those goals if we invest in girls and women. Women strengthen local communities, they strengthen nations, and therefore the world.
So we talk about SDG 5 today, but that's just a docking station for all others. And what's important, it's the blueprint for many of the issues that we face today, the complexities, whether it's migration or it is conflict or climate change. These SDGs respond to that. So pick them up as a whole. I mean, you can have any one as an entry point, but as a whole, they're a great response to many challenges that we have, but more importantly, the opportunities that await. It's about you getting up and doing something and not waiting to be told when or how to do it.
Where women participate fully in the economic, academic, political and social life of their nation, those countries thrive and develop sustainably. It's quite simple, really.